Usually when we talk about a tactical military advantage, there is this expectation of, like, simple mathematics.
Right, like a spreadsheet.
Exactly, a spreadsheet. You put superior technology on one side of the ledger and then, disorganized opposing force on the other, and the spreadsheet just calculates this clear, clean victory.
It looks perfect on paper.
It does. But then you step into the realities of modern urban conflict in Haiti, and suddenly that spreadsheet is just completely useless.
Yeah, the math goes out the window pretty fast.
It really does. And so today, for everyone joining us on this deep dive, we are unpacking a really fascinating tactical document. It details exactly how modern military technology could, theoretically anyway, be used to neutralize the massive gang coalitions currently operating in Haiti.
It's an incredibly intense strategic analysis. We are talking about the asymmetrical advantages a modern military force holds.
Right.
But more importantly for you listening, it dives into the structural and political realities required to actually execute those tactics on the ground.
So, to everyone listening, okay, let's unpack this. Why doesn't superior firepower on a spreadsheet automatically equal a victory on the streets?
Because, well, we aren't just looking at the what of urban warfare.
Like the guns and the gear.
Exactly. The guns, the drones, the gear. The real friction lies in the why and the how. When advanced military tactics collide with on-the-ground geopolitics or dense open geography and incredibly rigid legal frameworks, everything just slows down.
Right, it gets bogged down.
Yeah. You can have the most advanced night vision on the planet, but if the institutional structure behind it is fractured, those goggles aren't going to win back a city.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But before we get into the gear, we really have to understand the sheer scale of the opposition here.
We do.
The source document outlines just a massive mismatch. You've got an estimated 15,000 to, 20,000 heavily armed gang members?
Yeah, up to 20,000 united under coalitions like Vivin and Somme.
Which is staggering. If you're out there picturing, like, a loose crew in a street corner, you need to completely erase that image. This is a massive entrenched force.
Absolutely.
They dictate the daylight operations, they know every single inch of the local terrain, and they coordinate using just, basic smartphones and radios.
Right.
Facing down 20,000 armed fighters who know the alleys better than you do, that sounds completely insurmountable.
Well, it absolutely is if you fight them on their terms.
Okay.
What's fascinating here is how this brings us to the concept of asymmetrical warfare. A traditional military force doesn't try to match those numbers one-to-one.
Because they can't.
Exactly. Instead, they change the fundamental environment of the fight. The document points out that a specialized military unit can neutralize a massive numerical advantage by doing one very specific thing, which is owning the night.
Right, because the source mentions the gangs rely really heavily on local perimeter lookouts.
Yeah, known locally as Chikit.
Chukit, right. So how do you bypass thousands of eyes that are specifically out there watching for an approach?
By exploiting the fact that those eyes rely entirely on street-level visibility.
Oh, right.
When the sun goes down, you equip specialized infantry units with Generation 3 night vision goggles, NVGs, and you pair those with infrared lasers and thermal weapon sights.
And we should probably be clear about what Gen 3 actually means here, because I think people picture, like, the fuzzy green screens from old action movies.
Oh, yeah, no, this is not that. Generation 3 NVGs use specialized gallium arsenide photocathodes.
Okay, that sounds highly technical.
It is. Mechanically, what they do is take microscopic amounts of ambient light. So starlight, distant street lamps, whatever is there.
Just tiny amounts of light.
Right. And they amplify the photons thousands of times over. They practically turn pitch black into daylight for the wearer.
Wow.
So a military force equipped with this technology can maneuver completely undetected right past those Chukit lookouts. They can identify command nodes and strike before the gang elements can even mobilize.
It fundamentally changes the physics of the battlefield. Honestly, it reminds me of the mechanics in a strategy video game, but, applied to real life.
How so?
Well, if one side is stumbling around in the dark, and the other side has the fog of war completely turned off, the side with the vision dictates every single engagement.
That is a perfect analogy. And this advantage extends far beyond just individual soldiers wearing goggles. The source details a specific operational loop called the TTO cycle.
Right, TTO.
Targeting, thermal intelligence, and operation.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate here. Even if you can see in the dark, you are still walking into a concrete maze that you don't know.
Sure.
How do they actually coordinate an attack in those conditions without just getting lost or ambushed?
Well, that is where step one of the cycle comes in, thermal drones.
Ah,
And they aren't just broadcasting standard video feeds. These drones are conducting grid-square surveillance to map out barricades and safe entry routes. But more importantly, they are reading thermal signatures. They map the ambient heat of human bodies hiding inside structures or behind walls.
oh wow.
Yeah, so they are updating the battlefield layout in real time from above based on body heat.
So the CAN team can literally see the physical heat of an ambush forming before it even happens.
Correct. And then step 2 is funneling all that thermal intelligence into a tactical command center.
Okay.
From there, commanders route their units through these incredibly dense, sort of labyrinth-like slums using encrypted HF and VHF radio communications.
Now, why specifically HF and VHF? I mean, in a tight urban slum built of cinder block and tin roofs, standard comms must just be a nightmare.
Oh, they are. High-frequency and very high-frequency radios are critical here because those specific radio waves can actually bounce through and penetrate dense concrete urban canyons much more effectively than your standard UHF signals.
That is fascinating.
And the encryption means the games can't just intercept the signal using commercial scanners.
Right.
It is the equivalent of trying to navigate a pitch-black maze, while an eye in the sky whispers the exact map directly and exclusively into your ear.
Man.
Which brings us to the final step of the TTO cycle, the engineering and assault phase. This is where the digital intelligence slams into the physical reality of the street.
Because seeing through the dark doesn't magically melt the concrete in front of you.
No, it does not.
The source goes into some heavy detail about the physical fortifications blocking key arterial roads, specifically roads like RN2 and RN3.
Yes, the major highways.
Right. We are talking about a situation where medieval siege tactics are basically meeting modern junk.
The gangs have effectively built urban fortresses. They dig these really deep trenches across the highways, pour thick concrete barriers, and they even weld massive shipping containers together.
To create insurmountable roadblocks. When I was reading this part, the scale of it just blew my mind.
It's massive.
Welding shipping containers together isn't just a roadblock. That is full-on DIY fortress building. So how does an assault team even get past a welded wall of steel without just getting shredded in a crossfire?
Well, the short answer is you don't. You do not send infantry anywhere near it.
Okay.
The tactical answer requires specialized heavy machinery. The military utilizes heavily armored bulldozers. The source specifically cites this at a D9 style.
But wait, how does a construction bulldozer survive an urban firefight? I mean, it's just a tractor, right?
Well, a military-grade G9 is vastly different from what you see on a normal construction site.
Okay.
It is fitted with tons of sloped armor plating, designed specifically to deflect small arms fire. And often it has slat armor, too.
What's slat armor?
It's basically a metal grid system on the outside. It is designed to physically detonate incoming RPGs before they hit the main hull.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it features bulletproof glass several inches thick. These machines are engineered to drive directly into incoming fire, physically ram those welded containers out of the way, and just push rubble right into the trenches.
So the assault infantry can actually advance behind it.
Exactly.
It is just highly calculated brute force. The bulldozer basically becomes a moving, invincible piece of cover.
It really does. And while the bulldozer is clearing the physical path, it is paired with 40mm grenade launchers and mortar teams.
Now, mortars always struck me as a weapon for open battlefields. Why bring a mortar tube into a claustrophobic city street?
It really comes down to the geometry of the street.
Okay.
Gang snipers will entrench themselves inside cinder block buildings or even behind the very steel containers the bulldozer is trying to move.
Right, looking right down the street.
Exactly. If you send infantry to fire directly at those positions, they have to step into the fatal funnel, the narrow choke point where all the enemy guns are already pointed.
That's a death trap.
It is. So mortars and 40mm grenades provide indirect fire. They fire in a parabolic arc.
Meaning they go up and over.
Yes. You can lob explosives up and over the barricades, dropping munitions directly into the sniper nest without ever exposing your own troops to a direct line of sight.
So it fleshes out the entrenched positions without risking the infantry.
Precisely.
Now, there is another piece to this assault phase, the source highlights, and it deals with the human cost of these tactics. The golden hour.
Right. The tactical medical reality. Combat survival, and really unit operational tempo as a whole relied heavily on getting wounded soldiers stabilized and extracted within the first 60 minutes of injury.
Which is the golden hour.
Exactly. When you are launching intense assaults into fortified slums, the military must integrate combat paramedics in armored ambulances right behind the bulldozers.
Because if a soldier knows they are going to bleed out in a trench if they take a hit, I mean, they just aren't going to push forward.
Morale dictates momentum. Knowing that armored medical extraction is immediately available keeps the operational tempo aggressive.
That makes sense.
Soldiers will just fight much harder when the medical logistics are visible and reliable.
Okay, so we've mapped out the tactical toolkit here. We've got Gen 3 night vision, thermal drones, encrypted radios, armored bulldozers, and combat medics.
A very robust toolkit.
It is. It's a highly specialized approach. Which leads me to the obvious question. If this is the established blueprint, why bypass civil authority?
Right.
Doesn't Haiti already have a national police force to handle this?
They do. But the Haitian National Police, the PNH, they're simply not built for this kind of warfare, neither structurally nor legally.
The structural lives of these two forces just seem completely different. The police, the PNH, they work standard 8 to 12-hour shifts.
Right.
Their doctrine is focused on civil law enforcement, individual arrests, non-lethal control, maybe holding a defensive perimeter around a government building.
And the real vulnerability happens at the end of that 12-hour shift.
When they go home.
Exactly. A police officer has to return to civilian housing. Often they live in neighborhoods that are heavily monitored or even outright controlled by the very gang coalitions they were fighting just a few hours earlier.
Wow.
This makes them exceptionally vulnerable to targeted intimidation, kidnapping, or even assassination of their families. You fundamentally cannot wage an asymmetrical war when your personnel have to commute home through enemy territory every single night.
The psychological toll alone makes sustained operations impossible.
It does.
Now, the military, the FAd'H, operates in a completely different paradigm.
They do. The military is designed as a self-contained ecosystem for 247 sustained operational readiness.
Right.
They live within isolated, highly secure bases. During an active campaign, a military unit cycles through frontline patrol, then rotates into a tactical reserve, and then into rest. And they do all of that entirely within a secure compound.
So they never return to vulnerable civilian housing.
Never. They are structurally built to sustain a prolonged, high-intensity campaign.
Okay, the environment they sleep in is one thing, but here's where it gets really interesting. The legal framework of how they actually acquire their tools is another massive hurdle.
Oh, absolutely.
Normal civil governance is just not designed to buy armored bulldozers and mortar tubes.
No, it's not. The legal friction is often invisible to the public, but it is entirely prohibitive.
How so?
Well, police forces aren't legally mandated or authorized to employ direct-fire heavy weapons or anti-fortification munitions. If a civil government wants to purchase defense hardware, the process is just agonizing.
I can imagine.
There is prolonged legislative oversight, international vetting requirements, and these drawn-out bidding processes. Procurement under civil law can literally take years.
Yeah, you can't just drop a SAT D9 bulldozer and a crate of 40mm grenades into a shopping cart.
You really can't, which is why the source emphasizes the mechanism of declaring a state of siege or martial law.
Right.
That declaration fundamentally shifts governance from civil authority to military command.
Which changes the rules.
Completely. Under martial law, the executive branch bypasses traditional bureaucratic red tape. They can make emergency procurements, source high-priority hardware directly, and issue the gear immediately to the units that actually need it.
Okay, so we know the tactical mechanisms work. We know the military structure isolates the troops from gang intimidation, and we know the legal mechanism of a state of siege solves the procurement delays.
Right.
Looking at the spreadsheet, we have a clear path to victory. So why hasn't this tactical blueprint been fully unleashed?
Because the blueprint runs headfirst into a wall of real-world roadblocks. And the first one is a severe math problem.
On the numbers. Earlier, we established that there are up to 20,000 gang members entrenched in the capital. How big is the Haitian military right now?
Well, the FAd'H was completely disbanded for a long period and only reestablished in 2017.
Right.
The source estimates they currently have roughly 1,500 to 2,000 active personnel.
Wow. 1,500 troops against 20,000 fighters. The scale of that deficiency is just staggering.
It is. Even equipped with Gen 3 night vision and heavy armor, 1,500 troops simply cannot simultaneously execute a complex assault on a stronghold, hold the territory they just cleared, and continue to guard critical national infrastructure across the entire country.
They're just stretched too thin.
Impossibly thin.
And then there is the geographical constraint, the urban density. If you're listening and picturing a spacious city grid, you have to adjust that mental model right now.
Yeah, entirely.
We are talking about areas like Cité Soleil and Lower Delmas, which are some of those densely populated informal settlements in the Western Hemisphere.
Right.
The streets are incredibly narrow, and the structures are often just cinder blocks and tin roofs stacked right on top of each other.
And this creates a brutal strategic paradox. Deploying 40-millimeter grenades, indirect mortar fire, and heavy armor in tightly packed, fragile neighborhoods is essentially guaranteed to result in massive structural destruction.
Right. The risk of high civilian casualties is just extreme.
It is. And the gangs are fully aware of this dynamic. They deliberately entrench in these areas because they can immediately exploit any collateral damage for propaganda.
Drawing international condemnation against the government forces.
Exactly.
Now, the source analysis points out a very difficult political reality here regarding the international community. And for you listening, I just wanted to make it clear that we are simply reporting on the political realities outlined in the source document. We aren't endorsing any side here.
Right, we're just looking at the facts on the ground.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, foreign diplomats and international partners do provide logistical funding and armored vehicles to the police and UN-backed missions.
They do.
But there is a documented, deep-seated hesitancy to supply the heavy offensive military weapons, the mortars, the heavy armor directly to the Haitian military. Why is that?
Well, the reluctance to supply heavy weapons stems from three distinct structural factors. First, the threat of corruption and arms diversion.
Okay.
There is a very real concern that high-grade military hardware could be captured from armories or illicitly sold directly into gang hands.
Oh.
If a gang coalition gets hold of a cache of night vision goggles and 40-millimeter grenades, I mean, the entire power dynamic of the country shifts overnight.
It essentially arms the very threat they are trying to neutralize.
Exactly. Second, international law requires strict human rights compliance checks, often referred to in the U.S. as Leahy law vetting.
Right. Leash law.
This is required to approve export licenses for military-grade weapons. A government has to essentially prove these weapons won't be used indiscriminately.
Which, given the dense urban geography of the Port-au-Prince slums we just discussed, must be nearly impossible.
It is exceptionally difficult to prove a mortar won't hit civilians in that environment.
Yeah.
And third, there is the historical baggage. The international community is acutely aware of the Haitian military's past involvement in political coups over the decades.
Right. History plays a huge role.
It does. Arming a newly reformed military with overwhelming heavy firepower makes foreign diplomats incredibly nervous about long-term democratic stability.
So we have severe compounding constraints here, a massive troop deficiency, an urban density problem that basically turns heavy weapons into a civilian nightmare, and geopolitical gridlock preventing the acquisition of the right weapons in the first place.
It's a knot.
It is. So given all of those intersecting roadblocks, what is the actual path forward according to the source? How do you practically untangle this?
Well, the first mandatory step is a massive scale-up of personnel. The military must undergo rapid recruitment and vetting to expand to at least 5,000 to 8,000 combat-ready troops.
Okay.
But the personnel mean nothing without addressing the logistics. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the entire strategy hinges on secure supply chains.
Because owning the night requires power. I mean,
Yeah.
if you have Gen 3 NVGs, they are completely useless without a constant supply of specialized batteries.
Exactly.
And thermal drones are useless without replacement rotors.
And you cannot rely on vulnerable civil infrastructure to move those supplies.
Better.
The gangs frequently threaten or outright control the commercial ports.
Oh, right.
So the military needs direct, secure logistics channels, likely airborne or heavily guarded maritime routes. And these need to bypass civilian ports entirely just to keep the encrypted radios and thermal optics operational.
Wow, just to keep the lights on, basically.
Right. And once the troops and the supply lines are secured, the source outlines the core doctrinal solution. It's a three-step strategy called clear, hold, build.
Wait, you're saying the military violently clears a neighborhood using all this heavy tech, and then they just leave? Doesn't that immediately create a massive vacuum for the gangs to just, walk right back into the next day?
Well, that is exactly why the military doesn't operate in a vacuum. Step one is clear. The specialized military units use their night-capable assault tactics, the bulldozers and the indirect fire, to aggressively push the gangs out and take back the territory. Once the threat is neutralized, they withdraw to prepare for the next objective. Step 2 happens instantaneously. Hold. The trained police units, the P&H, immediately step in right behind the military.
Because the police are structurally better suited for community interaction and maintaining defensive perimeters in a stabilized zone.
Precisely. They become the occupying security force, which prevents that vacuum you mentioned.
Got it.
Then comes step 3, build. The state social services must immediately follow the police into the secured zone to establish stability, repair the infrastructure, and provide basic human needs to the population.
It's a really fascinating sequence. When I was digesting this doctrine, I actually thought of it mechanically, like treating a severe infection in the body.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
The military is the emergency surgery. It is sharp, it is highly traumatic to the surrounding tissue, but it decisively cuts out the disease.
Right.
Then the police are the stitches. They hold the wound closed and protect it so it doesn't get reinfected by the outside environment.
I like that.
And the state social services, the build phase, well, that's the long-term physical therapy and nutrition required to get the body functioning normally again.
That perfectly illustrates the interdependence of the whole strategy. If you skip the stitches, the wound tears right back open.
Yeah.
If the military clears an area but the police don't hold it, the gangs just reclaim it. If the police hold it but the state never builds the social services or fixes the economy, the root causes of the gang affiliation remain.
And you just breed a new generation of fighters.
Exactly. Every single step must be executed in perfect sequence or the entire system collapses.
So what does this all mean for you listening to this deep dive right now? Why spend this time unpacking the tactical realities of a conflict in Haiti?
It's a vital question.
Because it is a profound real-time case study in how simple solutions to complex global crises are never actually simple. You see a headline that demands, well, why doesn't the government just send in the army? And now you know the actual mechanics behind why that doesn't just happen.
Right.
Military victory isn't just a matter of buying better thermal drones or importing bigger armored bulldozers. It requires aligning raw tactical supremacy with complex legal authority, incredibly vulnerable logistics networks, and, frankly, delicate, historically fraught international diplomacy.
It's a massive undertaking.
It really is. It's a stark reminder that beneath any easy fix, there are always 10 invisible layers of friction holding it back.
It forces us to look completely past the spreadsheet and examine the human and institutional realities of war.
Yeah.
The source material lays out a highly effective tactical blueprint, but I think it leaves us with a very heavy, lingering question to consider.
What's that?
We've established that to achieve peace in this specific environment, the state has to rely on heavily armored bulldozers, night raids, and mortar fire in its own densely populated neighborhoods.
Right.
If the only way to restore order requires a state to treat its own cities like a foreign tactical battlefield, how does a society begin to rebuild trust in its institutions once the armor finally rolls away?
How do you go from a welded shipping container blocking a sniper back to a functional, vibrant city street? The tactical spreadsheet just can't calculate that.
No, it can't.
Only time can. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking the hard questions, and we'll catch you next time.